Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of whatever we're going to call this morning. This is a ministry of the Urban Alternative. It's a pastor's wives ministry production. I'm here and I'm so excited to introduce you to Dr. Wanda Bolton-Davis. We're going to be talking about discipleship. And this really is another episode in a series of content that we put together to encourage you in your faith. We first are always thinking about and talking to and supporting pastors' wives, because that was the ministry and the heart of my mother, Lois Evans, who has since gone on to be with the Lord. And we want to equip and empower and encourage pastors' wives. But so often the conversation that we're having with pastors' wives equips and empowers other women too. And so if you're a pastor's wife, you are welcome. If you're not a pastor's wife, you are welcome. And my hope is that our discussion today, in fact, I'm sure that our discussion today is going to enlighten you and encourage you to be more serious, not only about being a disciple, but about discipling others too. Dr. Wanda Bolton-Davis is here with me, and I want to tell you a little bit about her. I know her, and many women in my circle know her as Mama Wan, because she is not only interested in discipling in a formal context, but informally, of course, having people around her table, playing games, family game night, speaking truth with loving kindness, low judgment, but truth and loving kindness. This is not just what she teaches about, not just what she writes about. It's not just where she leads in, but it is also where she lives. And so I'm excited to talk to you about discipleship with her. Dr. Wanda has a deep passion for spiritual growth and discipleship. She has dedicated her life to empowering others in their spiritual journeys. She does hold a doctorate in ministry and has authored books on discipleship and provided training to many, including leaders who are in development across the country. As a former pastor's wife, she draws from her own experiences, her own story of resilience, and God's grace to connect with the brokenhearted. Dr. Wanda is a proud mother of 3, a devoted grandmother, and continues to inspire many through her own wisdom and compassion. Please help me welcome Dr. Wanda Bolton-Davis.
Thank you.
I'm so excited that you're here.
I'm excited to be here.
You know, I feel like anytime I get to have a conversation with someone on camera that is just an illustration of the conversations we've been able to have off camera, it's super, super fun.
Yeah.
So I feel like we get to share a little bit of overflow today.
Yeah.
So I just want to start with this. Why is discipleship so important to you? I mean, you don't just live it. You've like written about it. There's like 3 books here, y'all, that have her name on them. Why is it important?
Why is it important
to you?
To me?
Yes.
I'm glad you asked that question, because let me tell you, almost 25 years ago, when Victorious Disciples was birthed in my heart, I saw around me a church that was growing exponentially, but God showed me that we had a bunch of spiritual babes. And at that time, He put a passion in my heart to help people grow in their walk with the Lord, to move from having head knowledge of the Lord and His Word to actually living it out. And a lot of times, and I saw believers being stuck in that place of knowing the Word, but how do I walk in this? How do I live this out? So it's important to me to see believers truly walk in all that God has created them to be, and to walk in that freedom and liberty that is theirs through Christ.
Now, were you discipled intentionally by someone else?
You know what? Not formally.
Okay.
And when God put this in my spirit, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how I was going to do it. And I just started to journal what He told me. I reached out to 4 young ladies and I said, can we commit to each other for one year, once a month? And we began to work together and to serve together. And, I just loved on them for 1 year. But no, myself, I did not have a disciple maker or mentor or anyone walking with me formally. But as I looked and reflected on it, Crystal, there were people in my life that God strategically placed in my life that nurtured me spiritually, that taught me how to pray, that led me and directed me to the Lord. And so, yeah, there were 3 women, and I'm going to call them out.
Call them out.
Ethel Mars, who was the head of our youth group of the Baptist General Convention.
Mm-hmm.
And then Valerian Somerville, my first black teacher, 7th grade world geography teacher. And Shirley Alexander, who mentored me in my early years of marriage and discipled me in my early years of marriage. So,
okay,
yeah.
so let's go back to Miss Valerian.
Okay.
How did your geography teacher? How did she make it into the discipleship, the Hall of Fame discipleship?
You know what? We just cultivated this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
She saw my heart, I guess, and something in me, and I was just amazed by her because she was my first black teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I started babysitting for her and, going home one night a week and just helping her, and it became personal, not just at school. So you're probably thinking, did you get an A in her class? I tell everybody, I know nothing about world geography because I was the teacher's pet. I didn't learn geography, but she loved on me. And she met me where I was. And yeah. So
You mentioned
special.
formal and informal.
Yeah.
And so obviously discipleship happened for you informally.
Yeah.
And you have gone on with what God has given you and created formal structure for it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of define for us the difference between informal and formal discipleship?
Yeah. So informal is usually no set structure. You may not have specified meeting days or times, but you do life together. But it's not intentional, but it just flows. It's just a natural flow of doing life with someone.
Mm-hmm.
To make it more structured, you have specific meeting times. You're intentional, perhaps with material that you're using, or a book that you're going through, or a study that you're doing, and you're intentional on the progress and going through these steps. So yeah, that's how I would define it. So I have focused primarily on small groups.
Okay.
Because I believe that something happens in small community when you're doing life together as a group, and like-minded people who are headed in the same direction as it relates to spiritual growth.
That's so good. That's so good. So doing life together, let's talk about the informal piece just a little bit. If someone is watching, and whether they are in a position to disciple someone else, or in a desire of, they have the desire to be discipled. Often I find that people seem to not know who in their sphere, who do I disciple? Who do I? So when I think about doing life with, can you help people with what are they looking for? How do I know who to ask to disciple me? How do I know who to invite into relationship? Because there's lots of people around me, but how do I identify who's the one person or the two or three that I should actually hone in on? So maybe from your own experience of how did those women select you, or from your experience of selecting other women, how do you pick?
Prayer. Those first 4 women that I discipled, I knew them.
Yeah.
I was in relationship with them. We would talk. They would share things that was going on in their life, and I would earnestly pray for them, for their concerns. And that's what happened in that particular incident. I was praying for them on my knees, praying for their concerns and what they were going through. And I heard the Spirit of the Lord say, disciple them. So sometimes it can be through prayer. Sometimes it can be through, people that are, like I said, already in your life that you are engaging on a day-to-day basis, that you're like, you know what? There's some growth there that can happen. There's potential there, and God could just kind of knit your hearts together. As far as the disciplee, seeking out the discipler or the disciple maker, I think God just kind of draws you. You see something in a person that you desire, or that you admire, or that you want an area in which you want to grow. But you do want to seek out a spiritually mature individual that is a praying person, that knows the word, that is being and walking obediently to the word of God.
That's good.
So it's just kind of happens organically oftentimes.
I mean, I know that you've probably seen this. I've experienced so much of women who will come to me and they'll say, can you disciple me or can you mentor me? That's a key word. And there's a couple of questions related to that I want to ask you. Discipleship is a word. Mentoring is a word. And then today we've got coaching.
Yeah.
That's a word.
Yeah.
Kind of how would you define the difference between those three? Are they three different ways of saying the same thing? Is there a mechanical difference between them? And just because as we throw these words around, as women are asking to be mentored, is that what they really want, is discipleship? And so I'm curious about the difference between a discipleship, a mentor, or maybe even coaching, which people hear about so much today.
So mentoring I see as a more specified, targeted relationship.
Like in a specific area.
In a specific,
like
you can have
motherhood or the corporate sphere.
Business coach.
Okay.
Financial or mentor,
Yes.
So it's more specified and targeted. Discipleship is more holistic.
Okay.
In that we are helping individuals grow, and we oftentimes say spiritual growth, but it's in every area of our lives. Because as we grow spiritually, it impacts
touches everything.
Every area.
Yeah.
It's a transformation of the heart. So I'm discipling you in the area, yes, spiritually, financially, relationally, because discipleship impacts every area of our lives.
Okay. So mentoring, coaching, more specific to help you develop or grow in a certain area.
Exactly.
Discipleship is the root, is let's attack your spiritual growth, your spiritual connectivity to the Lord, and that then overflows and impacts all the things.
Yes.
That is so good. Okay, so there are key elements that are effective for discipleship. Can you walk us through some of those?
I can. I always talk about the environment. Having an environment that is conducive for a person to grow in their walk. And there are certain things that are critical to that environment. First of all, love. We have to love people unconditionally and love them where they are.
What do you mean? You mean discipleship is not about getting their list of wrongdoings and going through them and slapping their hands?
No.
I'm going to disciple you.
No.
And you're going to come out pure as gold. Follow my list.
And I had to learn that because we can be kind of rigid as Christians, honestly. But when you're discipling someone, you got to meet them where they are.
Yeah.
We have to love them exactly where they are because it's about spiritual growth, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes they're babes and they're still struggling in some areas.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. We cannot have condemnation or judgment. And so they have to feel love. So love, trust, that this is a space and a person in which I can trust. Confidentiality is important because I always say we can hurt as many people as we help. Yeah?
Yeah.
And so having that environment of love and trust.
Got you. Your cheat sheet.
My cheat sheet. Grace. Again, not the judgment, but a place of grace and humility and submission. There has to be a part of submission, too, on the person that's being discipled. Because with that comes accountability, Yeah. And so as we love and as trust and grace is in this environment, accountability. You said yourself, I can speak to some things as disciple makers when we see, but it must be done in love. And you build that trust to a point that you've made so many deposits that when there has to be or needs to be correction, it's like, okay, I can take it.
What does that look like for, love, grace, meeting someone where they are, I understand that. But when you just made the statement about making deposits, what has that looked like either for you to make deposits? Like give me hands and feet for that, or deposits that were made for you. What does that look like for me to make deposits in the life of someone else?
Time, because you cannot disciple anyone without putting in time. So it's going to be time. It's going to be concern for what they're concerned about.
Okay.
It's following up. It's checking on them. It's praying for them. I do a lot of hosting in my home. I just love you know, I
Yes.
have that hospitality is one of my
Yes.
things. And I think having individuals in your home, it just opens the door to a sense of closeness and sincerity and just welcoming them, not only into your space,
Yeah.
but into your life.
So good.
Yeah.
It's so good. I think it's important that when we're discipling other people, and this has happened for me, where discipleship, structured or unstructured, is about truths and about the things that you want to learn about Scripture and about the Lord and about walking your Christian life, and you mentioned that. But also, so much of discipleship is about personal experience. And so I wanted to ask you this: how can we use our personal experiences in our discipleship efforts, and how has your own experience with brokenness influenced your approach to discipling others? And let me, before you even answer that, say, so often when I have the women who want discipleship or even mentoring, but when they're looking for someone to help them, guide them, pour into them, they say, I can't find anybody. And the main reason I've found when I talk to women who should be in a season spiritually where they're able to disciple others is they let their brokenness or their own personal experiences disqualify them. Well, I didn't do this right, or this was my struggle, or this was my hardship, and so what actually do I have to give? So I think this is a really important question. So how do personal experiences play a role, and how have your own?
Yeah. So you know that whenever we're going through something, have experienced something, whether it be hurt, disappointment, brokenness, loss, grief, we're not going through it just for ourselves, right?
We don't want to think about that when we're going through it. We don't want to think about how is this going to bless somebody else later.
Yeah. And when we're in the middle of it, we don't see it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah?
Right.
And it's important for us to be in it, feel it, own it, and then give ourselves permission to heal from it. And it's not that we wait until we get it all right before we can disciple others, because we'll never get it all right. I tell individuals, I'm on this walk with you, right? We are in this together. We are growing together. But I can say the things that I have gone through and experienced, loss, grief, divorce, has given me another avenue to minister. You know, it has given me a greater sense of grace and empathy to understand where I once couldn't identify in some areas.
You had truth without the skin on it.
Exactly. That I can say, I know that pain. And I can tell you, you're going to get through this.
And be believed.
Yeah. You're going to get on the other side. And we're going to walk through this together.
So good.
Yeah. My, you know, when I went through my divorce, I thought, how can I help someone with their marriage, or, you know, walk with someone through this? But it has opened so many doors to help pastors' wives, even, you know, that feel they don't have a place to go, where they can be real, where they can, and so God just has used every hurt, every pain for His glory and opened more doors.
That's so good. That's so good. So how can church, as a place where we worship, where we go, where we get involved in community, and that's a big part of church. You go and you hear the sermon preached on Sunday, but you're supposed to get engaged in fellowship with other believers. But discipleship, you know, you got small group ministries popping up all over the place. How can the church, though, be more effective in the area of discipleship? What is the church getting right? And how do you see space or room for the church in general to grow?
First of all, I'm excited about this season that we're in as it relates to discipleship.
Yeah.
Because when the Lord put this in my spirit.
Yeah, because how long was that ago? Victorious Christian Disciples was
25 years next year.
Yeah.
In
You've been
2025.
walking this road for a long time.
Yeah, and when He put that in my heart, I didn't know of a model. I didn't know of people weren't talking about discipleship, right? And I was just kind of had to figure it out on my own. And I just had a thought. I don't want to forget that your mom, I want to say this, she was instrumental in getting Victorious Disciples going. I'm so thankful. So let me just pause right here to say thank you. I'm so grateful for your mother. She invited me to the First Ladies Conferences to speak and to do workshops, and I worked with her on the advisory council. And she really was instrumental in launching the ministry that the Lord has given me. So I'm grateful for that. So now, back to your question. So I'm excited now, fast forward almost 25 years, everybody's talking about discipleship. Right? We just had the movie The Forge, and I was so excited to see that it was about discipleship. I'm hearing other pastors and teachers and leaders talk about now discipleship. So I'm excited. I believe this is the era, this is the time, this is the season that God is doing a work in this area. So your question was, what can churches do?
Yeah, how can we be more effective?
We can be more effective, first of all, by being intentional and having a discipleship strategy, by implementing, having a spiritual growth path that is laid out, that your members are aware of, that it's communicated, and everybody knows this is the path I'm on if I'm wanting to grow spiritually. You know, I teach at UTA.
For those of y'all who are not in Texas, that's the University of Texas at Arlington.
Yeah. Okay. And we have a curriculum that's laid out from the time you enter as a freshman to the time you graduate as a senior. It's all laid out. You know what classes you need to take. You know what professors you're going to have. You know how many hours you need to accomplish the goal that you're there for. We need that as it relates to our spiritual growth, to have a spiritual growth path that is laid out for our members.
We have small groups.
We do have small groups.
And but that's different than having a holistic path.
A holistic path, a curriculum, if you will. But I don't want it to be, I want to make sure that we're not making it about just checking off the box. That I'm just taking this class and taking this class. But that we are doing life and it's relational, and we're praying with, and we're walking with, and there's inner transformation, heart transformation that's happening. But in addition to the spiritual growth outcomes or the spiritual growth path, having spiritual growth outcomes.
Like fruit. How do you know this is accomplishing something in your life?
Exactly. How do I measure my own spiritual growth? Has my prayer life increased? Am I treating my spouse better?
Be specific.
Come on now. You know, am I modeling this before my children? Having these outcomes that people can assess themselves. How am I doing? You know? So I just think churches can be more strategic, more intentional, have a spiritual growth plan that is clear, that is concise, and that is communicated consistently.
One of the things that I know you promote is that this path involves ongoing connection with a group of people over time. It's not just like you said. It's not just that I took a class, and it's not just that I'm in a small group. It's that we are step by step moving forward over time. And so time is one of the things I want to ask you about. You know, you have had informal discipleship, as we talked about earlier. So when I'm entering a discipleship relationship, or when a church is looking to structure or add more structure and clarity around their discipleship path, how much time am I actually supposed to spend connected to Dr. Wanda, or with the other women that are connected to Dr. Wanda? Like, is this life? Is this a couple of years? Like, in an ideal world, what would you say to get the most out of it that you need to be prepared to invest in relationship with other people.
You know, and that's hard to say. And
Yeah.
there's no right or wrong. You know, it's like it has to be 5 years.
Because there's somebody listening that's like, okay, I'm going to try this, but how long am I supposed to
Right,
commit?
right. and I say to that, be prayerful and just listen to the seasons. You know what I mean? You will know. Life, and I know life happens, but I would say if you are going to be intentional in a discipling relationship, don't commit less than a year.
Okay.
That would be what I would advise. At least commit to a year, and hand them off well, if you will, or make sure they're in a good place, or you just don't abandon them. Okay, your year is up. But here's the thing too, as we're discipling, we're prayerfully helping to develop them into disciple makers.
Yes.
Because discipleship is about replication and multiplication, right?
That's right.
So you're not just hanging with me
Right.
to be fed, but you're being fed so that you can go feed someone else. You're being poured into so that you can go and pour into someone else, so that you can grow. And so we want to make sure that that element of replication is there, and it's not just a Bible study.
Yeah. You enjoy bringing women into your home, hospitality.
Yeah.
What else can it look like if my house is a mess? I'm not a hospitality person, even though hospitality is biblical. But what else does it look like? Where else do we go? How often do we meet?
Yeah. It could be a phone call.
Okay.
It can be a Zoom nowadays.
Okay.
We can meet at the coffee shop.
Okay.
We can go shopping together. It doesn't always have to be we're sitting down and we are studying a book.
Okay.
It can be spending time. Let's go to the movies. It's spending time. I can invite you. We can go out to dinner. It can be a number of things. Doing life with
So the way you just
person.
describe it, it kind of sounds fun. It's like, actually, I could plan for 12 months all the things I want to do and then just say, okay, so this month we're going to dinner. This month I want to take you to my favorite coffee shop. This month we're going to go see a movie. Like, it could be the adventure of just connecting and adding meaningful conversation to it.
It can be, yes. But you want to make sure that we are tying those activities to a spiritual element.
There needs to be connection.
There needs to be the
the
Word
context,
of God.
right.
Yes, there needs to be, because we're being intentional in this.
Yeah.
So we can add the fun, but we definitely want to be solid in that.
Like,
we have our
I
time
like
in the
you, but
Word.
there's a reason why we're being committed to this.
We're on our way somewhere.
Listen, I like that. We're on our way somewhere. You mentioned Zoom. And so I know technology and a phone call, which, depending on the generation that you're in, will determine if you do that or not. But, leveraging that, do you feel that it's as effective? If I'm on a Zoom call with someone, if we're not physically in each other's space, like if that's a tool I can use, because there are some people that are going to be like, oh, good, I can sit here and never have to. Is that just as good, or is it just an option? And in person is better. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, we're in this age now where it's all tech.
You're trying to be flexible.
It's all tech, right?
Yeah.
And again, we meet people where they are. There are some people like they may not come to a discipleship group, but they will get on Zoom and they will be a part of a group there. We've both done BSF.
Yes.
Yeah. And since COVID, they're doing
a lot of things
differently and doing Zoom and so I think that we need to be flexible. I think technology, of course, it can be good and it can be bad, right? But we're living in a day and a time, and I believe that God is using it to reach so that the gospel can reach the ends of the earth.
Correct.
And so we've got to be flexible in that. It can be used for good in terms of enhancing communication, fostering relationships across the world, across the globe, that people we can touch now that we could never touch before. And so, I don't know that it's, better or best in terms of in person, but I just know we got to be flexible.
Use what works.
There you go.
Use what works.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you know, my brain, I'm sitting here, my brain is popping off with all the ideas I have for you.
Okay.
Like, ooh, she can do this, she can do this. Okay. When you think about the church and you think about people that are at church, and as I mentioned before, you've got women wanting to be discipled and women who are in the season that they should, but maybe are not for their own reason. And with everything that we've talked about, for someone who is committed to church, they are mature in their spiritual growth. They might even be a leader in the church. And they're hearing this message. What is step one for them? They're convicted. They understand it. But in the context of all the ideas that we've talked about, where would you encourage a woman who's been sitting in church, soaking up the word, committed to her relationship with the Lord, and she's like, I gotta take this next step. But maybe my church doesn't have the structure. Maybe it does. Kind of speak to that woman who's hearing, and from this conversation, what would you encourage her to do next?
Yeah. So I would say if they're feeling that,
Yes,
God, that's the Spirit of the Lord saying, I'm calling you to answer the call to make disciples. And so that's the first thing. They got to know that feeling is coming from the Lord. Secondly,
somebody just said right now to themselves, "Oh God,
oh man, oh man." So yeah, that's the Lord. And we're commissioned, right? We've been commissioned, so that's a call for you. Secondly, I would say pray. Begin to pray about, Lord, who would you have me to disciple? And I believe they probably already know. Or that person or those individuals will come to mind pretty quickly. Yeah. And then I say, reach out to them.
Okay.
Reach out to them. And whether it's within your church or you just decide to do it on your own, in your own home or wherever, however you want that looks on Zoom.
Yeah.
But just reach out and step out. And here's the other thing, Crystal. I believe that whoever it is that they contact, they're going to be so excited.
Yes.
And ready. Yeah.
They were just waiting on you.
They were just waiting on you to make that call. That's it.
Somebody's whole situation is stirred up right now. Okay, so you are a discipleship trainer. What does that mean exactly? So through Victorious Christian Disciples, which is your ministry, what services do you offer to aid people or churches in their quest to create the environment for these next steps to happen?
So Victorious Disciples Ministries.
I said it wrong.
Yeah, that's okay.
Sorry. That's the name of the... Did I say something wrong?
It's all good.
Okay.
Victorious Disciples Ministries.
There we go. Thank you.
And we offer discipleship training and leadership development. And what that looks like, it can be going into a church and meeting with your small group leaders, your staff, helping to train them, or going and training the church as a whole. I've had few churches where they just, on a Sunday mornings, like, we're just going to start doing a discipleship series, and as a part of their series, implementing some training for them. So it can be as small or as large as you like. It can be as short. It can be a 1-day, 4-hour seminar. It can be a 3-day training to help churches either implement small groups specifically, or enhance what they're already doing. Helping them to assess their assimilation process, looking at if maybe they don't have a spiritual growth path or plan, getting that, helping them implement that, as well as looking at what are our spiritual growth outcomes. Where are we trying to get our people from here to here, and how will we get them there?
It's so good.
Yeah.
And you enjoy doing it all.
I love it. I love it. I'm called to this. You know, some years ago, the Lord said to me, I heard in my spirit, that I was to help the church be the church without spot or wrinkle. Because that's the church he's coming back for, right?
Yeah.
And so we've got to do that by helping our people grow spiritually. And so, yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it.
So great. So You said you're called to it. You said you love it. So when you think about the legacy that you hope to leave through your work of discipleship, what would that be?
It's interesting you asked me that question because now that I'm almost 65.
You look good for that, honey.
I'm almost 65. I think
Sharp,
more
always
now. I think more now about legacy. I think now more about what do I want said about me
Yes.
when I'm no longer here.
Yes.
And that would be, my prayer is that there will be generations, and I don't mean just physical generations, I mean spiritual generations of disciples that started from those 4 women that now have multiplied and replicated, that I'm not just making disciples, but I'm making disciple makers.
Yeah. Yeah.
That will go from generation to generation to generation. Being intentional and strategic in helping individuals grow in their walk with the Lord.
I love that. I love that. It's one thing to see your children do well. It's another thing to see your grandchildren doing well and knowing that the replication continues long after you're gone. And it's the same way with spiritual legacy. It's not just what I did, and it's not just what I taught the next person, but it's the fact that it keeps going. And this is the process of discipleship, truly, and legacy. Well, I would say that you already have that because of all the women that I know that talk about some of the things that you mentioned earlier, how you meet people where they are. You make some of the best food on the planet. You always have an amazing home. You have allowed people to be in your home to partake of your wisdom, but also your fun. You like to have fun. You are, again, always looking like $1 million, even though you don't like to shop. You don't look like it. Your presence, your wisdom, your knowledge of the Word, and your love for God, all are inviting. And so the people that I have known that have come into your sphere, including me, it's just wanting more of what you have. And you saying, that's great, but let me show you what you have to do to get it, to have it, and to own it. So there's this legacy, just if I can say that you already have. You're already, when the Bible talks in Proverbs 31 about a woman who's known in the gates, that is the case already for you. So the Lord dropping this message and this ministry in your heart before it was the hot topic was His calling, because He knew He could trust you with it, and you have been trustworthy all this time that I've known you. And so in this season, as I get to know you at new levels, and just watching and learning from you, I'm like, when you come and sit on Wednesday night Bible study, I'm like, oh no, I have to do this right because Dr. Wanda is here. But you are sitting literally on the front row, and you are encouraging to me and impactful to me in so many different ways, in ways you may never know. So it's already happening is what I want to say. It's already happening. We've got some questions from the audience, and I want to make sure we ask some of these so we can hit everyone where they are. Someone said, I am in my 40s. Am I too old to be discipled?
No.
So I don't have to feel like, man, if I'm 40, if I'm not ready to disciple somebody else, I've missed the boat.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No, ma'am. We never get too old to be discipled.
That's why I come to your house.
We never get too old.
I'm like, when is my next appointment?
No, we never get too old.
Yeah.
That would be to say, I know it all. I'm spiritually mature. I'm good. I have no room for growth. But no, yes, ma'am, you are never too old.
The answer is no. Okay. Because we had that question from a couple of people. Someone said, to add on to that, I'm often tempted to shrink back because of my age. And so, is it the same if I'm 40? Do I seek someone out? I mean, it's the same.
It's the same.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm a young pastor's wife, and I feel out of place trying to make disciples because I'm so young. It's the same message, right?
See, I think sometimes we we get caught up in our chronological age.
Yes.
And spiritually, that does not matter.
Discipleship is not about age.
It's not about age. Yeah.
So what is it about then? Spiritual maturity?
Spiritual maturity. Spiritual knowledge of the word. Obedience. A lifestyle that's where I'm seeking and I'm following Christ. It's not about I'm 39.
So how do I know if I'm spiritually mature enough? Like, and I know there's not a checklist or a test to take, but how do I, because mixed in there, you've got people who may have the spiritual maturity but don't feel like, they don't have the confidence. So how do I know if I should reach out to someone else and offer to disciple them? If it maybe it's not about my age, but it's like it's just the question: have I crossed over yet? Like, what, how do I know?
And I hear that all the time. Even individuals that I have discipled, and I'm like, you're ready. You're ready to disciple some others, and they're like, no, I'm not.
Yes,
I don't know enough. I don't know. And I always say, we will never know it all.
Correct.
And even as I'm discipling, and I've done this for years.
You're still growing.
I'm still growing,
Yes.
and I don't have all the answers.
Right.
And as we are studying together, if a question comes up that I don't have the answer to, I will assign it to both of us to
go and study.
We're gonna
pray, figure it out.
It's exactly. And it's okay to say, I don't know. Right? And we will learn together. We're on this journey together. So we will never feel qualified. Rarely do you say, oh, even though I've done this for years,
Yes.
I'm doing a group right now, and we've had discussions and questions that have come up that I'm like, that is really good. Let's look at that some more. Let's go deeper in that. I grow with every group. I grow with every individual.
Yeah.
So don't feel like you have to have all the answers.
So how do I know if I don't have someone else in my life saying, you're ready? How do I know that I'm ready? How do I know? Is it the Holy Spirit? Do I feel like what would you say to somebody who's...
I do believe God will prompt you
Yes.
if he's calling you to disciple.
Okay.
To be a disciple maker.
Okay.
We've all been commissioned, but but I believe God will begin to prompt your spirit.
Okay.
That I need to do this. No, I don't have all the answers. I don't quite feel ready, but there's something that's leading me. Or there's an individual in my life. We can do this together. You know.
It becomes something you can't shake.
Yeah, and if you don't feel ready to be a disciple maker, seek someone out to disciple you. You know, so maybe
But start somewhere.
Start somewhere.
Yeah. That's good.
I had I didn't bring it, but I had stats. I had brought some stats on. It's only like 28% of believers are in a discipling relationship.
Because we think we're being discipled because we go to church.
There you go.
That's the problem.
That's a good thing. We think, because I'm going to church, or even that I'm going to Bible study. That I'm being discipled.
I'm checking the box. I've done the latest study.
Or I evangelize. You know, that's another thing. I'm telling people about Christ. I'm sharing. There is a difference between evangelism and discipleship. Evangelism, we are sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. It says to go and make disciples. But the second part of the Great Commission is that we teach them, right?
Yeah.
And so we evangelizing, we're sharing the gospel, we're bringing people into the kingdom. But once they are in the kingdom, we had to help them grow up in the kingdom. So we're teaching them all things whatsoever he has commanded us.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I love that. One more question here. I personally feel stuck. So how can I disciple someone else when I feel like I'm at a standstill in my life? So this is not even about being ready. It's just The winds and the waves are actively moving in my life. So what should I do in that case?
And that person may need to seek initially someone to disciple them.
Okay.
Rather than discipling others, you may need to connect with someone to disciple you.
And don't you think that sometimes both of those can happen at the same time?
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Like, I feel like, it's like,
that's true.
it's like multi-level marketing. You need an upline and a downline.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
right.
Like, it's okay to, which I do. I mean, I've joked about it, but seriously, I've talked to you, I've sat at your kitchen table, but that does not mean that I'm not also pouring out.
Exactly.
And I think, in fact, if you're not receiving relationally, when you're giving relationally, then you can start giving on empty, which isn't good either.
I can't remember the author. Someone said, we all need a Paul in our life.
Yes, and a Timothy.
A Barnabas.
Yep.
And a Timothy.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's so good. So if you're feeling stuck, I mean, just get what you need to get unstuck, but don't let that stop you. Because don't you think, too, pouring out to other people gets things moving in you?
Now, that's true. I would agree. Because it holds you to another level of accountability. I've got to step up because I'm pouring into these individuals. So, yeah, it could be both and, not either or.
You reminded me of that scripture that says, by now you ought to be teachers. But like you're still on milk.
You're
like,
on milk. That's right.
You got to get it together.
That's right.
This is so great. I just want to, again, affirm the ministry that God gave you a long time ago. The world is just catching up. What I am hearing is there's a place for many parts of our spiritual maturity and growth. Receiving on a Sunday morning through a sermon, going to Bible studies or to classes. But spiritual discipleship is another layer of that that requires life on life. It requires connection in an ongoing way and a commitment to that connection. And that we shouldn't be afraid of needing to be discipled at any age or being a disciple maker at any age, but we should be looking for those opportunities because we've been commissioned, we've all been called to do this, and looking for how we can activate that in our lives. I am curious about one closing thought from you. As you have discipled others, and you just mentioned it calls you to another standard, it keeps you accountable at a different layer. What has been the gift to you of discipling other people? So apart from it makes you sit up straighter. When you're discipling young women, or even in the group that you have now, what is the gift to you? What is the payment or the payback or the gift to you in doing that work?
The gift for me is when I hear how their lives have been changed, how their relationships have gotten better, how they've been healed in some areas, how they've allowed God to come in and do a transforming work in their heart in specific areas. Those aha moments, like, oh my goodness, I didn't know, but now I know. I wasn't walking in obedience here, but now I am. I've been able to let this go because I've learned. My marriage is better because, I'm a better mother. Just hearing the testimonies and the transforming experiences in the lives of others, that blesses me.
I love that. Y'all, I hope that you have enjoyed my conversation with Dr. Wanda. And I know somebody's going to ask this question, so let me go ahead and ask. They're like, oh, she has a group. So you talked about the training, but is your group just open, or these are people that you've selected that are kind of in your sphere of influence?
So I have both.
Okay.
I have both. And just a few months ago, I started a Disciple Makers Challenge.
Okay.
I'm doing that virtually.
Okay.
Anybody can join, and it is free.
Okay.
And every month, we are dealing with a topic, and I'm still working that out because we've only done it now 3 months.
Yeah.
But I'm opening it up because I've had so many people to ask me, and I'm like,
Can I
what
be
can
in
I
your
do?
group?
Well, I can't,
But
be
you can't-
hands-on with
right,
everybody.
right.
But I can do this group. It's the first Monday of each month at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time.
AM, PM?
PM.
Okay.
7 p.m. And it's Zoom, and they can go to victoriousdisciples.org and just get on the mailing list,
Okay.
and we'll send you information.
Great.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great. That's
Okay.
good. So, y'all, you have instructions.
victoriousdisciples.org
for this challenge. Also, I hope that you've enjoyed this conversation, and I want to make sure that anytime we're having conversations, again, first and foremost to equip and empower pastors' wives, but for the runoff to empower you if you're not a pastor's wife. So to make sure you don't miss out on any of the content that is here, be sure to subscribe to this channel and like this video, comment. I'd love to know what your takeaway is from it. Be sure and share it with the other people that you know, because we want to make sure that this content that we share, the content from today and the content from so much great content over the years, that it is visible and helpful to everyone, and we need your help in order to make that possible. If you are a pastor's wife, I want you to know about the Facebook group that we have for pastors' wives to connect. You can go to loisevans.org/Facebook so that you can connect with other women who are living in a season of life or in a segment of life that you're experiencing, and find friendship and encouragement to help you on your journey. In addition to that, if you are not a pastor's wife, even whether or not you are, you can be or not, we are writing devotionals every month. Priscilla and I, my sister Priscilla Shire, most of you know her. You can subscribe to that devotional by going to tonyevans.org/her Devo. It's just a devotion of encouragement, again, free to you. All of this is free to you, to encourage you in your walk. And so if you're subscribed, pass that along so that when that devotional comes out, you receive it. I want to make sure you know about the next event that we have for Pastors' Wives. We are excited about our Pastors' Wives Ministry Retreat. It will be in April of 2025 here in the Dallas area. And I want to show you a little bit more about what happened at our last retreat so that you can see what that retreat experience is all about. Watch this.
We're excited about what the Lord has in store for you, asking Him to refresh you in a way that maybe is even unexpected for you.
My dad, I said, Wanda, you have to put the coals together, right? Because when they are spread apart, they can't burn on their own. Put them together so that they can ignite each other. And sometimes that's what we're doing today. That's what we're doing at this retreat. We're putting the coals together.
Broken areas of our life, and we can point at those broken areas and we can say, this is the thing that's holding me back. This is the thing that's keeping me from what God has for me. This is the thing that is restraining me. But I have a different question for you. What if it's exactly those things that God wants to use to bind you to Him?
No matter what people say, no matter how they look at you, no matter how you feel, keep pursuing Jesus.
Say with me, how great.
wanted to tell you a little story about why we're here. Around 2005, 2006, I decided to prepare for a half marathon. And then I found out they had a walkers group. So I told Mom about it. And she joined me out here many Saturday mornings to walk the half marathon. On one particular Saturday, she walked around the whole lake. She had walked around the whole lake to get back to her car to realize she had lost her keys. And so she figured, I'll just walk a little bit, I'm sure I'll find them. So she walked back a little bit, no keys, walked forward a little bit, no keys. So she proceeded to start walking around the whole lake again, looking for her keys. But what I thought about her willingness to go around the lake again, because there was something on that path that was important. And really, to me, that is an example of her character, the willingness often to go the extra mile, to go a distance she didn't plan on going, to go further than she ever planned on going, to be maybe a little more tired or spent than she planned on being. But what was a part of that extra mile was worth the trip. And so we're here today because this is really about you and about in your journey, all of the different things that you have had to do, that you are currently doing, that you will be asked to do, that are about you going the extra mile. We know that individually, just as believers, God is going to ask us to go further in some areas, but we know specifically as a pastor's wife, there is stuff you never planned to do, there are distances you never planned to travel, but the reason why you do it, the reason why you're faithful is because you believe along that journey, there's something worth the trip. So we're here to celebrate you and also to remind you that in you going the extra mile, that there is value in that. Hey y'all, so I hope you enjoyed that, and I want to make sure that if you are a pastor's wife and you are interested in coming to that retreat, that you stay up with the latest and greatest news. So how do you do that? You go to loisevans.org/retreat for more information, okay? But I want to also back up and review the other action items that you have. So number one, you can go to Dr. Wanda's site, victoriousdisciples.org, to find out more about her challenge. And also, if you're interested in receiving training at your church, for your leadership team or for your small groups team or just your church at large, you can use the contact field on her site to reach out to her directly for more information. Don't forget about Her Devo. Get the devotionals every month, tonyevans.org/Her Devo. Don't forget to subscribe and like all the cool kids say, to make sure you hear about what's on this channel. And don't forget about the Facebook group if you're a pastor's wife, loisevans.org/Facebook. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know I have, y'all. I'm a little convicted. So I didn't tell her about that, but I personally was a little convicted. I hope you were convicted too, because we are all called and we are all commissioned to serve Christ, who discipled and showed us how to do that too. So if you didn't know what it is, now you know. Now go and be a disciple and a disciple maker. We'll see you next time.